The sun had barely risen when Mama Neri arrived in the city, her small bag slung over one shoulder, and a tired but hopeful smile on her face. She wore a faded wrapper and a scarf tied neatly on her head. Her sandals were dusty from the long journey, but her heart was full of excitement to see her only daughter, Mabel. Mabel had grown into a brilliant young woman, now studying law at one of the top universities. Mama Neri had raised her alone after her husband passed away. Every bean she sowed in the village, every hour spent under the scorching sun, had been for Mabel's future. And now, she was finally here in the city to stay with her child, even just for a short time. But Mabel was not the same girl she once knew. When Mama Neri knocked at her daughter's apartment door, Mabel opened it with a blank stare. "Oh," she muttered. "You're here." No hug. No warmth. Just coldness. "You didn't tell me you'd be dressed like that," Mabel added, glancing at the village attire her mother wore. "You look like a housemaid." Mama Neri chuckled softly, trying to lighten the moment. "This is all I have, my daughter. It kept me warm on the bus." Mabel didn't smile. "Whatever. Just don't talk much when my friends come around, okay? They won't understand." She stepped aside to let her mother in. The apartment was modern, full of glass furniture, bright lights, and city noise. Mama Neri stood awkwardly at the door, clutching her bag. "You can sleep on the couch," Mabel said casually. "I don't have space in my room, and besides, I need my privacy." Mama Neri nodded slowly, placing her bag beside the couch. Her eyes scanned the apartment. So different from the quiet clay house in the village. She missed the sound of chickens, the smell of wood fire, the laughter of neighbors. But she smiled. She was here for her daughter. Later that evening, Mabel's friends arrived, 3 of them, all city girls, wearing short skirts and fancy wigs. They greeted Mabel loudly with laughter and hugs. "And who is that?" one of them asked, pointing toward Mama Neri, who was wiping her hands after cooking jollof rice in the kitchen. "Oh, that's just the help," Mabel replied quickly. "She cleans and cooks for me. You know how hard it is to do everything alone." Mama Neri froze. Her heart skipped. The help. She wanted to say something, but her throat closed. She swallowed hard and returned to the kitchen, pretending she hadn't heard. Throughout the evening, she served the guests with shaky hands. They laughed, spilled drinks, and made a mess. No one thanked her. Not even her own daughter. "Mabel, your maid makes amazing rice," one girl said. Mabel smiled proudly. She strained. "I make sure she knows how I like things." That night, after everyone left, Mama Neri sat quietly on the couch, her hands folded in her lap. Mabel passed her without a word and shut her room door. Tears welled up in Mama Neri's eyes. She looked around the shiny apartment. Her daughter had all the success she ever dreamed of. But at what cost? Was it worth it, if her own child could no longer see her as a mother? As the night grew darker, Mama Neri whispered a quiet prayer under her breath. "May the ancestors open her eyes, before it's too late." She laid down on the couch, her heart heavy, and drifted into a sleep filled with forgotten lullabies and memories of simpler times. Morning sunlight slipped through the curtains and settled softly on Mama Neri's tired face. She sat up slowly on the couch, her bones aching from the uncomfortable sleep. Mabel's apartment was quiet. The only sound came from the ticking wall clock. She folded her wrapper neatly and tiptoed into the kitchen. Even though Mabel had not asked, Mama Neri began preparing breakfast, fried plantains and eggs too. It was the least she could do for her daughter. As the food sizzled in the pan, her mind wandered back to the days when Mabel was a little girl, running barefoot around the compound, laughing as she played with old tires and mango seeds. Back then, they lived in a single-room mud house in the village of Umuduru. Life was hard. After Mabel's father died of illness, Mama Neri had to do everything herself. She sold roasted corn at the roadside. She fetched water for neighbors for small coins. She skipped meals just to afford school books for Mabel. But she never complained. She was a mother, and a mother's love had no boundaries. She remembered one rainy night when Mabel had a high fever. The clinic was miles away, and there was no money. Mama Neri had carried her in her arms through the storm, barefoot, and begged the village nurse to treat her daughter on credit. Now, that same daughter could barely look her in the eye. "Mama, I told you not to cook unless I ask," Mabel's voice startled her. She turned to see her daughter standing at the kitchen door, arms folded, phone in hand. "I just thought," Mama Neri began. "You thought wrong," Mabel snapped. "This is not the village. Things are done differently here. I don't want my house smelling like palm oil all the time." Mama Neri lowered her eyes. "I'm sorry." Mabel shook her head in frustration and walked away. Left alone, Mama Neri dished the food quietly. She knew the real reason Mabel was angry. It wasn't the cooking or the smell. It was shame. Shame of where she came from. Shame of her roots. Of her. That afternoon, while sweeping the sitting room, Mama Neri's thoughts drifted to a story her own mother once told her, a folktale about a proud girl who disrespected her parents and claimed to be better than her family. The gods, angered by her arrogance, cursed her to walk the earth alone. That story had always sounded like myth. But now, it felt real. Almost too real. Later, Mabel dressed up for class in a sharp red blouse and black trousers. She grabbed her bag and headed for the door. "I'll be back late." "Don't open the door for strangers," she said flatly. "Okay, my daughter," Mama Neri responded softly. Just as Mabel was about to leave, a neighbor, Mama Dorcas, passed by and waved. She had seen Mama Neri and recognized her immediately. "Oh, is that not your mother, Mabel?" she asked cheerfully. Mabel froze for a second, then forced a smile. "No, she's just someone helping out around here." Mama Neri stood still, her eyes stinging. Mama Dorcas gave a confused nod. "Oh, I see. She just looks so much like you." Mabel laughed quickly and disappeared into the street. Back inside, Mama Neri went to the bathroom, splashed water on her face, and stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her wrinkles had deepened. Her hair was turning gray. Her daughter no longer saw beauty or strength, only shame. She whispered to herself, "I gave her everything, and now I'm nothing to her." That night, she sat in silence again, watching the door, hoping that when it opened, it would bring back the little girl who once called her a mama with joy. But the door only opened for Mabel's tired footsteps and cold silence. The weight in her chest grew heavier. And her prayer deepened. "Ancestors, show her who I truly am, before life teaches her the hard way." The city was alive with night sounds, honking cars, loud music, and laughter echoing from nearby balconies. But inside Mabel's apartment, it was tense and cold. Mama Neri sat by the window, peeling cassava slowly. Her fingers moved carefully, but her thoughts were heavy. The way Mabel denied her earlier still echoed in her mind. "She just looks like you," Mama Dorcas had said. And Mabel. "She's just helping around." That lie stung like salt in an open wound. Later that night, Mabel brought in 3 friends, Tolu, Sandra, and Ifeoma. They were loud and full of gossip, dressed in glittering outfits. Mabel had invited them for a sleepover. "Mama," Mabel called sharply. "Come clean the kitchen and bring us water." Mama Neri came out silently, bowed her head, and started clearing plates. As she moved about, Tolu leaned closer to Mabel and whispered, "She really looks like you." "Are you sure she's not your?" "She's the help." "Please don't start with that," Mabel interrupted, forcing a laugh. Mama Neri heard it. Every word. Every denial. Her hands shook, but she kept cleaning. She didn't want to embarrass her daughter in front of friends. Her heart was breaking, but she stayed calm, like a leaf refusing to fall, even when the wind grows cruel. After serving them drinks, she walked slowly to her room, the little corner beside the kitchen where she laid a mattress on the floor. As she lay down, tears rolled down her cheeks. She whispered into the dark, "Why do you hate me, Mabel?" She didn't expect an answer. But that night, something strange happened. Mama Neri dreamed. In her dream, she stood alone in a dark forest. The wind howled, and the trees whispered her name. Suddenly, a woman dressed in white appeared. Her skin glowed like moonlight. Her voice was soft but strong. "You have planted love in dry soil," the woman said. "But love never dies. Even in pain, it grows." Mama Neri looked at her with trembling lips. "Why is my daughter so blind to my love?" The spirit's eyes filled with tears. "Because the city has poisoned her roots. She chases flowers that fade and forgets the hands that fed her." Mama Neri fell to her knees. "What do I do?" The spirit bent and touched her shoulder gently. "Endure. But know this, the wind is changing. What has been hidden will be revealed. When pride burns out, truth will rise like fire. And when it does, she will weep for what she threw away." Then, a baby's cry echoed through the forest. The sound pierced Mama Neri's heart, and she woke up with a jolt. She sat upright in the dark room, breathing heavily. Her body was drenched in sweat, but her spirit felt strangely calm. A sign. A warning. Or perhaps, a promise. The next morning, Mabel was laughing with her friends as they prepared to leave. "Mama, clean the sitting room after they go," she called casually. "They left a mess." "Yes, my daughter," Mama Neri replied softly. As the door shut behind them, Mama Neri walked to the center of the room and looked around. Dirty cups. Empty bottles. Crumbs on the floor. She sighed and began to clean. But her heart was different now. She was no longer just a mother begging for love. She was a mother waiting for destiny to speak. And it would. Soon. 2 weeks passed. Mama Neri stayed quiet, always walking, always gentle, never raising her voice. She cooked, cleaned, washed, and still called her daughter "my child," even though Mabel rarely looked at her. But change was coming, quietly, slowly, like morning mist creeping into a valley. That Saturday, while Mabel was away at school, someone knocked on the door. Mama Neri opened it, and gasped. Standing there, wrapped in a bright orange wrapper, was Auntie Ijeoma, an old neighbor from their village in Umuduru. "Oh, Neri. It's really you," Auntie Ijeoma cried, pulling her into a warm embrace. Tears sprang to Mama Neri's eyes. "Ijeoma, it has been years." They both laughed and hugged tightly. Time fell away like dry leaves. They sat together in the small living room, sipping pap and catching up on life, village news, weddings, the new school roof, and who was now chief. Then the door opened. Mabel stepped in, music playing in her ears, phone in her hand. She froze when she saw the visitor. Auntie Ijeoma stood up with a wide smile. "Oh, Mabel. You've grown into a fine woman, just like your mother." Mabel's smile was tight. "Good afternoon." Mabel. "You remember me? I carried you on my back when you were still sucking your thumb," she laughed. Mabel gave a dry nod and turned to Mama Neri. "Can I talk to you?" They stepped aside into the hallway. "Why did you invite people here without telling me?" Mabel hissed. "This is my space." "She came on her own," Mama Neri replied gently. "She saw me at the market. I didn't know she would visit." "Well, tell her not to stay long." "I have friends coming," Mabel said coldly and stormed into her room. Back in the living room, Mama Neri tried to smile, but her hands trembled. Auntie Ijeoma noticed. "What's wrong, Neri?" Mama Neri's lips shook. "She's not the same child we raised. The city, it has stolen her heart." There was a pause. Then Auntie Ijeoma whispered, "She introduced you as the help, didn't she?" Tears filled Mama Neri's eyes. She nodded. Auntie Ijeoma sat back and shook her head slowly. "Oh, the yam that forgets the root will never grow again." They sat in silence, both women mourning what was lost, not just love, but identity, family, and truth. Before leaving, Auntie Ijeoma squeezed Mama Neri's hands. "You are not alone. You hear me? One day, she will remember. But until then, pray. And stay strong." When the door shut behind her, Mama Neri felt something break inside. That night, she packed a small bag. She folded her wrapper, put away her kitchen things, and laid a handwritten letter under Mabel's pillow. She didn't say goodbye. She simply walked out into the quiet night, her slippers echoing down the tiled hallway. In her room, Mabel was busy preparing for her guest. She didn't even notice her mother was gone. She only saw the clean floor, the neatly arranged cushions, and the fresh scent of pepper soup that still lingered in the air. She didn't think to check her mother's corner by the kitchen. She didn't feel the silence. Not yet. But in the soft shadows of her pillow, the letter waited. It carried more truth than she was ready to face. And it would change everything. The next morning, Mabel stretched lazily in bed, sunlight warming her cheeks. Her party the night before had gone well. Her friends had praised her home, her outfits, her food, never knowing it was her mother who had done all the work before quietly vanishing into the night. She stood up to make her bed, and that's when her hand brushed something under the pillow. A folded piece of paper. Her brows furrowed. She opened it slowly. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, but unmistakably her mother's. "My dear daughter Mabel. If you are reading this, I have already gone back to the village. Do not be angry. I did not leave out of spite. I left out of love and pain. I came to the city to see the woman you had become. I prayed that you would look at me and still see your mother. But I realized that the city had built a wall between us, and my presence only brought you shame. You have forgotten where you came from, Mabel. You have forgotten me. I carried you when you were sick. I sold my wrappers so you could buy books. I washed other people's clothes, scrubbed floors, and went to bed hungry many nights, all so you could stand tall in the world. And yet, you hid me from your friends. You denied me. You made me a ghost in your life. I forgive you. Because a mother's love does not wait for perfection, it gives, even when it is not returned. But I will not remain where I am not wanted. Find this photo. Keep it. It is the only one I have of us together, when you were still small and full of love. No matter what happens, I will always love you. Mama Neri. Taped to the back of the letter was a small, old photo. It showed Mabel as a baby in her mother's arms, both smiling beneath a mango tree. Mabel's heart stopped. She sat down, unable to breathe. The words felt like knives slicing through her chest. She had not even noticed her mother was gone. She hadn't cared. Tears welled up and spilled over. She clutched the photo to her chest, sobbing, her pride melting into shame. All the memories came flooding back. The times her mother had wrapped her in warm blankets during cold village nights, the days when she waited outside school for hours just to walk her home, the one time Mabel had fallen into the river and her mother had jumped in without hesitation, even though she couldn't swim well. All those memories, buried beneath city pride. She stood up quickly, checked every corner of the house. "Mama," she called out, her voice cracking. "Mama, where are you?" But there was no answer. Just the echo of her voice bouncing back from the walls. Mabel clutched the letter tightly and fell to her knees. "I'm sorry, she whispered into the silence. I'm so sorry. Her phone buzzed. A message from school. An exam date. She didn't care. She couldn't concentrate. She had lost her mother, and not because of death, but because of her own coldness. That night, she held the photo as she lay in bed. Sleep didn't come. Only regret. By morning, her decision was clear. She packed a bag, booked a bus ticket, and left for Omudoro village. She didn't know what she would say. She just prayed it wasn't too late. The road to Umudo was long and bumpy. Dust filled the air as the bus rumbled past tall grasses and quiet villages. Mabel sat by the window, clutching her mother's photo and letter close to her chest. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her heart heavy with guilt. She hadn't eaten. She hadn't spoken to anyone. Her mind was filled with one prayer. Let her be okay. Let me see her one more time. As the bus pulled into the small station at the edge of Omuduru, familiar scents greeted her, freshly roasted corn, burning firewood, and the earthy smell of red soil. Everything looked the same, yet her heart felt so different. She stepped out and walked briskly through the narrow footpaths that led to the compound she once called home. Children were playing in the sand. Women pounded yam in front of their huts. Roosters darted between trees. Then she saw it. Her mother's house, small, mud-bricked, with the same old zinc roof. But something was wrong. A group of women were gathered near the entrance, whispering. Their faces were tight with concern. Mabel's stomach dropped. Excuse me, she said, approaching a familiar face, Mama Nkiru, one of her mother's closest friends. Please, where is my mother, Mama Neri? Mama Nkiru turned sharply. Her eyes widened. Mabel. You came. Mabel nodded slowly, tears forming again. Yes. I'm here to see her. Is she inside? Mama Nkiru sighed and held Mabel's hand. Your mother collapsed 3 days ago. She's been very sick since she came back. The pain was too much for her heart. Mabel's knees buckled. Take me to her. Please. Inside the dim hut, Mama Nari lay on a small mat, her eyes closed, her face pale and thin. A damp cloth rested on her forehead. Her breathing was shallow. Mama, Mabel whispered, falling to her knees beside her. It's me. It's your daughter. Mama Neri stared. Her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, her eyes opened. Mabel, she said, barely audible. Yes, Mama. I'm here. I came back. I read your letter. I'm so sorry, her voice cracked. I was blind, foolish, cruel. Please forgive me. Mama Neri tried to smile. Her fingers moved weakly toward her daughter's hand. You came back. That's all I prayed for. Tears spilled down Mabel's cheeks. She kissed her mother's hand again and again. I didn't see your love, Mama. I forgot everything you did for me. I let pride take me away from you. But I promise, I will never leave your side again. Mama Neri's eyes filled with tears. A mother's love doesn't die. They held each other in silence, hearts speaking louder than words. For the next few days, Mabel stayed by her mother's side, refusing to leave the hut. She cooked, cleaned, fetched herbs, and rubbed her mother's legs with warm shea butter like Mama Neri used to do for her as a child. And slowly, with each passing day, her mother's strength began to return. The villagers watched in quiet awe as the proud city girl who once walked past them without greeting now fetched water from the stream and knelt to greet elders. They whispered, she has changed. One evening, Mama Neri sat outside beneath the mango tree, a wrapper around her shoulders. Mabel sat beside her, her head on her mother's lap. The stars blinked above them. Mama, she said softly, can you tell me one of your folk tales? The one about the girl who lost everything, and then found herself again. Mama Nari smiled for the first time in weeks. "My child," she said, stroking Mabel's hair, "I think we are living that tale." Weeks passed, and Mama Nari's health returned slowly, like the sunrise creeping over a quiet hill. Her laughter began to return, soft at first, then full. Mabel remained by her side, learning the rhythm of the village, the market calls in the morning, the pounding of yam at noon, and the evening tales told under the moonlight. For the first time in years, mother and daughter were not just living together, they were healing together. One Sunday, the village called for a gathering beneath the giant baobab tree, where elders shared wisdom and stories to pass on to the young. Mabel and Mama Nari joined the crowd, sitting on mats laid carefully on the red earth. Elder Buckle, with his white beard and slow voice, stepped forward. "Tonight," he said, "I will tell you a story of pride, pain, and return." Mabel leaned closer. "There was once a girl," he began, "whose mother gave her everything but love, food, protection, and knowledge. But when the girl grew, she became ashamed of her roots. She went to the city and pretended she had no mother. The gods washed. The ancestors wept. But the mother, she waited." He paused, letting the silence speak. Until one day, the girl returned, not with pride, but with tears. She knelt before her mother and asked for forgiveness. The gods saw her heart. And so, they did not curse her. Instead, they gave her a second chance. The crowd clapped gently, some nodding, some wiping tears. Mabel sat frozen. She knew this story. It was hers. That night, after the crowd had gone, Mabel and Mama Nari sat quietly under the same baobab tree. The wind was cool, and the stars blinked above like silent witnesses. "Mama," Mabel whispered, "I think I'm ready." "Ready for what, my child?" "To return to the city, but this time, not to hide you. This time, I will walk beside you, with pride." Mama Nari smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "Then go, Mabel," she said. "But never forget who you are." A month later, Mabel and Mama Nari returned to the city. But things were different now. At the gate of the apartment building, Mabel held her mother's hand and walked proudly. "This is my mother," she said to the security man. "She is the reason I am here. She is the reason I am anything at all." Inside the apartment, Mabel made space for her mother, not on the couch, but in her own room. She shared meals with her. They laughed. They talked. When friends came over, Mabel introduced Mama Nari with joy. "This is Mama," she would say. "The strongest woman I've ever known." Her friends were surprised, then moved. Some even asked to hear Mama Nari's village stories. Mabel began to visit rural communities, speaking to young women about honoring their parents, staying grounded, and remembering where they came from. She became a voice for daughters who had forgotten their roots, and for mothers who had been left behind. She no longer chased approval from the world. She had found something deeper, peace, identity, and her true self in her mother's love. Years later, Mabel stood at her university graduation. She had finished with top honors. As she stepped on the stage, she held Mama Nari's hand and pulled her close. "This degree belongs to my mother," she said into the microphone. "She is the one who truly earned it." The hall erupted in applause. Mama Nari's eyes filled with proud tears. The shame was gone. The silence was broken. And their story, once one of pain, had become one of redemption, strength, and everlasting love.